Castlevania Aria of Sorrow tends to live in the shadow of Symphony of the Night, but I think Aria is a better game for exploring what this genre can do. I've long felt that Metroidvanias are one of the more accessible genres because they feel like the most natural progression of games since their early eras. They control like 2D platformers, which most people are already familiar with, and the genre itself is fairly simple conceptually. You start out with a basic character and incrementally collect power-ups, so if the game is well paced, there's not much to overwhelm you. The biggest hurdle that these games usually have to clear is striking a balance between directing the player on the intended path versus allowing for non-linear progression. One of the criticisms I often see of Hollow Knight is that people don't know what they're supposed to do once they enter the Forgotten Crossroads in that game. There is a path you're supposed to follow in this area to get the first power-up, but the game doesn't tell you that. It omits giving you direction in the hopes that you'll stumble into the right way on your own. Many people do, and that's a big part of the experience for them, but for those that don't, or those who just aren't very good at wayfinding, it'll probably be more frustrating than fun. I'm pretty terrible with directions myself, so I appreciate how Aria of Sorrow is a bit more linear while still giving you a handful of branching paths to keep that sense of exploration. You aren't nudged in any particular direction, but most pathways you can take lead you to somewhere relevant that's also accessible with the abilities you have at a given time. To use a Hollow Knight comparison again, there are lots of areas in that game you can find early, but are clearly inaccessible until you unlock more abilities. These older Castlevanias can't really do that often because it's much harder to read the map and remember where these locations are without any labels or map markers. It gives Aria of Sorrow a different sense of exploration. There's a stronger feeling of progress because most paths you're taking will ultimately lead you to a reward, so there's not as much time wasted exploring something that will lead to a dead end or inaccessible secret. Part of this can be attributed to smart map connections as well. Each area connects to each other in a way that's natural and convenient. The castle is designed so that you can chart out a way to move from point A to point B fairly quickly. I still wish it was easier to maneuver between the broader areas faster because the game is fairly stingy with its teleport points, but levels are connected to each other in a way that makes navigating not entirely tedious. Aria of Sorrow does a good job with its levels for these reasons. It strikes the right balance and actually maintains it throughout most of the game. While Hollow Nest or Planet Zebes may be more interesting settings visually, Dracula's Castle can feel much more intuitive to venture through. This is more true of the early and mid-game than the late game, especially since a lot of enemy placement starts to deteriorate by that point, but you'll also get the giant bat soul towards the end, which alleviates a lot of those late-game problems. To that point, the soul system is one of the more interesting things that this game does. As a reminder, regular enemies you encounter have a chance of dropping their soul upon defeat. Each of these souls are from one of 3 categories, and one from each category can be equipped at a time. Bullet souls are offensive moves that mimic attacks the enemy could do. Guardian souls are usually movement-based or provide some kind of defensive skill, and enchanted souls grant you bonus stats or passive abilities like walking on water. I view this system as having 2 main purposes, and both of them are well served. The first is to add variety to a moveset that would otherwise be pretty limited. Each bullet and guardian soul is fairly unique in how they function, with different animations, area of effects, and so on. There are a lot of different weapons in the game, but they all handle virtually the same, with the only real differences being the arc and range of your sword swing, so the variety in the different souls makes up for these comparatively boring differences. Its second purpose is more interesting though. It's how the game uses souls as a means to give Soma more abilities that aren't directly tied to boss progression. Gaining new abilities in a Metroidvania is usually the gateway to accessing more parts of the map, so if you want to keep a progression path in mind, they have to be given out in drips. One boss gives you a dash, another gives a double jump, a wall climb, etc. The problem that usually arises here is that you don't reach your full potential until near the end of the game, so there's less opportunity to capitalize on the new mechanics that the later bosses unlock. The souls in this game circumvent this problem quite well, because it gives you a steady stream of new abilities for the entirety of the game without any of them also having to serve as keys to new areas. Most of them are the aforementioned offensive moves, which makes sense considering it wouldn't be wise to lock vital movement abilities behind random loot drops. The randomness of it all is a fair criticism of the system itself, but weighing it against the other possible avenues they could have taken, I don't think it's entirely unreasonable. I've also seen some criticize a lot of the bullet souls for being really overpowered, which is almost undeniably true, but these style of Castlevanias don't really try to be difficult, so I don't think that's entirely fair. The enjoyment I get out of Aria of Sorrow comes from the wealth of options from these different moves, not necessarily how strong or weak they are. There's also the really solid sprite work and satisfaction of gradually uncovering the map piece by piece, neither of which really factor into the difficulty level, so the fact that the game is easy has never really been bothersome. There are still a lot of refinements that the Souls system could use, but I enjoy it for what it is. It's a smart blend of combat, movement, and exploration. It's indicative of what the rest of the game is, a smart take on its genre that works around its limitations and presents enough unique ideas to give it its own identity. And for as much credit as Symphony of the Night gets, part of me feels like Aria of Sorrow has sowed more interesting ideas and achieved its goals just a bit better. Within games, I find it pretty common for pioneers of a genre to be difficult to go back and enjoy, whether it be the antiquated mechanics or stiff controls or anything else that's a relic of old age. For the most part, I don't think the Castlevania games have suffered this fate, which is why I'm less hesitant to recommend this game to most people. If nothing else, it serves as a good case study of what the early Metroidvanias were capable of, so for that reason alone, Aria of Sorrow is certainly worth your time.